Welcome to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, a podcast to encourage, educate, and equip you to care for children and youth through adoption, foster, and kinship care. Hosted by an adoptive mom with over 22 years of kinship and adoptive parenting experience. She's on this journey with you. Please welcome Sandra Flach.
For by him all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. That is Colossians chapter 1, verse 17. I am your host, Sandra Flach. Welcome to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, where my goal each week is to encourage and equip you for your parenting journey. As an adoptive mom myself for over 26 years, I get it. My husband and I have been on this long journey raising kids through kinship adoption, international adoptions, kids with trauma histories, some with prenatal exposure to alcohol. So I know how isolating and frustrating and challenging and yet joy-filled this journey can be. We're still parenting. Our youngest two are 19 and 21. They are still at home. Been doing this a long time and really want this podcast to be a resource and a support for you that I didn't have in those early days. So today, I'm excited to have an inspiring guest with us today. Meredith Shuman is the founder of James Trail, an organization supporting the unique needs of families and organizations impacted by trauma. Meredith has over 28 years of experience serving as a therapist, trauma-informed trainer, and as a mom. She holds a master's in social work from the University of Texas at Arlington and is a TBRI, that's Trust-Based Relational Intervention practitioner. Meredith and her husband, Dan, a global health physician, have been married over 30 years and have 5 children, 4 of whom are adopted. Meredith loves a passport with lots of stamps, a water bottle with lots of stickers, a table with lots of people, and a mountain with lots of trail. Please welcome Meredith Shuman. Hey, Meredith, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sandra. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited too, because we got to meet in person briefly back in October at the Replanted conference in Chicago.
Yes.
So I'm thrilled to get to know you better, thrilled for our listeners to get to know you.
Same. Thank you.
Yeah. And I know you're an adoptive mom too, so I always like to start with the adoption story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you and your husband, Dan, have 4 children through adoption. Is that right?
We have 5 total, and yes, 4 are through adoption. Yes.
Yeah. So what led you to pursue adoption?
Well, I had a lot of female problems growing up, and I didn't really think that I was going to be able to give birth to children. And so when we did have a successful pregnancy and delivery with our oldest, and we all survived, we were like, cool. So yeah, now we're going to adopt. And so actually very quickly we stepped into the process, and in under a year, little Jordan landed in our laps, and we thought that we were done. And we're like, oh goodness, this is so wonderful. God's blessed us. Look at our little family. Yay, God. Thank you. All the things. And then a few years later, we got a practically audible call from the Lord. And it was basically, you're not done, Meredith and Dan, with your family. And we were kind of like, what? What's happening right now? And, very long story short, we adopted 3 awesome little girls who have become awesome young women from Colombia. They are biological sisters. And so when they came to us through adoption, our oldest, named Griffin, was 9, and then Jordan was, adopted domestically here in the United States was 8, and the 3 girls were 7, 5, and 3. So
Mm.
they are just stair step right in a row. And I love it when people say, wow, all your kids are so close in age. How did you do that? And I'm like, well, there's this beautiful thing called adoption.
Yeah.
I did not give birth to all those kids.
Oh,
So,
I love that story, and it's interesting because our kids, we have 3 biological kids, and then we did a
mm,
kinship. We had a little girl come to live with us when she was 8 years old, and she
yeah.
was sort of in the middle of our 2 oldest and age-wise, and then eventually felt that calling to adopt internationally, and we adopted
Mm,
a sibling set. Well, first we brought home 3 siblings from Ukraine, and they were 9, 7, and 3, but then found out there was an even younger one. And then by the time Ukraine allowed us to go back and we could go back and all of that, he turned 5. The youngest turned 5 by the time we got him. So
wow.
we got the whole set too. So
Yeah, you get
yeah,
it.
yeah, totally.
Like
And
doubling your family basically in one
yeah,
swoop.
yeah. And we didn't know, we didn't know that saying, we didn't know what we didn't know.
Sure.
So what about you guys? How was the adjustment when especially when the girls came, because they came all at the same time. So that had to be crazy. I can relate to that. But what was that adjustment like? Because, we know there's always trauma. Sometimes there's prenatal exposure to substances, alcohol, whatever. What was that like for you guys?
Well, I have a therapist, social worker background. My husband is in medicine, and we are people of faith. And so we didn't enter into our second adoption, naively. We knew it was going to be challenging. We had no idea how challenging it was about to get, and not just for us, but for the girls as
Yeah.
well. Before I understood so much about trauma and its impact, the way I used to think about it is, just because they land in the United States from Colombia, that does not mean that the tapes are not still playing. And
Mm,
so there were coping mechanisms there that were still playing out for the girls. And, the girls came to us after having experienced the worst of what this world has to offer. And
mm,
so, yeah, the adjustment for us was extremely challenging. The adjustment for them was extremely
mm,
challenging. God called us to be family. He made it very clear that they're Schumans and they're ours and we're theirs and all of the things. And so, it's been our perseverance to remain family as, one of the challenges of our lives. And, what's beautiful is when we can truly tell people, but their coming to us has changed us.
mm,
I think people that don't maybe have that firsthand experience with adoption or foster care, they can say, "Oh, you're so good. Look at
mm.
you. You did such a good
Yeah.
thing." And what we want to say is we were blessed. The Lord has
Yeah.
taken me into incredibly deep spaces with him that I
Mhm.
can't say that I would have gone through or gone to if we had not experienced
Yeah.
some of those challenges. And it dredges up some of the challenges of my youth,
Yeah.
the challenges of growing up with a mother who had a severe mental health, probably undiagnosed, but a severe mental health diagnosis. And I don't want to put a bow on it and just say, but God is faithful and all is well, because he is faithful and we are making our way through, but it's quite the journey. And,
Yes.
I love that you're doing this podcast and you're such a veteran. You've done like a zillion of these episodes. And I love the way that our communities can come together
Mm.
through this medium. And so, yeah, so there's lots
Yeah.
more that we could say, but that's just the highlights.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And you're right. I feel the same way. My life has never been the same again. Um, but I have to say it's for the better. We're refined through the fire, right? God uses our trials to, bring us through things to make us more like him. right? And
Amen.
that's how we grow. So wouldn't trade any of it, but at the same time, hard, like you said, none of it was easy. And we know, whether it's trauma, prenatal exposure, whatever the things are, the symptoms of that are behavioral, right? So we're dealing
Right.
with big behaviors a lot of times with our kids, and we don't really always initially know that this is really symptoms of, what's going on here. So, and you were a social worker, your husband a doctor. So, did you really know, like, have you, when you were dealing with the really hard things, did you have an understanding, like, were you the TBRI practitioner before, or did that come after?
Great question. No, I was not. I did have some understanding, but as we all entered into therapy, let's say that together.
Yes.
Yay, hashtag therapy. I really began to understand specifically how trauma impacts, kids that come, from such a background.
Mhm.
And so in in those sessions, I felt like I was in school.
Yeah.
Our therapist is absolutely was absolutely incredible. And I felt like I was getting my second master's degree
Yeah.
in those therapy sessions with the girls and by myself as well. And I'm just so proud of my girls. I'm just so proud of
Mhm.
them, of the boys as well. It's been a journey for all seven of us to walk, as I like to think about it, to walk this trail, to walk this path together.
Mhm.
And I'm just so I can only give God glory for the victories
Mhm.
that have happened and are happening in our family. So, no, I did not. I wasn't, TBRI trained until much, much later. And, you know, I had no idea about Kurt Thompson and, Dan Siegel and all of those amazing authors and scientists and stuff like that. So, I am a huge advocate for, understanding the content for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. We learn as we go, and as we learn to help our own kids and family and ourselves and find healing, then we're also able to help others along the way, as well. So, how old are your kids now, and how are they doing?
So let's see. They're all young adults now.
Mm.
My youngest is about to turn 21 and my oldest is 26. So, and I knew the teenage years were going to be hard, but I'm here to say that I had no idea how hard the young adult years were going to be from the parenting angle. I know I remember as a young adult how difficult it is from the kid angle, but from the parenting angle. And
Mm.
so actually, I'll be a part of a really cool conference this weekend called the Conference, and it's in Kansas
Yeah.
City. And I have the opportunity to do a workshop with Jordan, our second oldest,
Oh.
about parenting young adults and what that looks like, and
Mm.
mainly just all of my mistakes
Oh yeah.
and things that
Me
I'm
too.
continuing to try to learn. And because I just feel like navigating, that's this space with young adults, and especially in this era post 2020,
Oh yeah.
it's just like, living on Mars. It's just a whole
Yeah.
nother world.
Yeah. And then and parenting kids who have trauma histories, kids who, some of our kids have been prenatally exposed, which, my two youngest that are home are 19 and 21, both with fetal alcohol syndrome.
Mm.
And just navigating that, is that's challenging, because it's just not, because we've launched so many other kids, some adopted and some biological, but it's it's just harder, and post 2020, you factor in all of those things, and some may not ever live independently, and some will need some
Mm.
interdependence, and it just looks so different, and it's more, I just find that, the natural consequences to our choices, and when our kids are older teens and young adults, can be scary if they don't have, like some of mine, they don't have, they're not good decision makers. They don't have, that executive function that's, going to help them navigate through those things. So it can be scary for the parents, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When there's cars and,
Yes.
romantic relationships and, access to all forms of media, yeah, it's
Yeah.
very scary as a parent.
Yeah. And the media thing, what biological, adopted, whatever, that's, the generation of children that we're raising who have nonstop access to that. That it's a dangerous world for any kid or anybody, but especially kids with trauma histories, kids who are
Right.
prenatally exposed. There's so much more vulnerable. And it can that's I find that that's a big thing that I hear from parents, that it's just so hard to navigate.
Yeah, that's one of the top, probably one or two things that I I am so glad that I am at this stage in my life, and I say Jesus come because,
Yeah.
yeah, the the media, you know, you can you can read all the things and you can do all the things and you can go
Mhm.
to Focus on the Family and you can go to these workshops and man, there's just no simple answer, as
Yeah.
from the parenting angle, and there's just no easy recipe. Do these 8 things and then you can help protect your kids from, so I just feel like society, is so. I feel like 50 years from now, 100 years from now, people are going to look back and say, "Wow, that was the Wild West. How did you navigate that?" And we'll be like, "Well, I don't know. We really didn't.
Yeah.
Not very
Yeah.
well."
Yeah. Barely survived that.
Uh,
Yeah. It is so crazy. So out of your kids, because they're all older now, did you give ages? How old are they now?
so 21,
Oh, you did tell us that.
22. Yeah, and then the
They're in their
oldest is
20s. Yes.
26. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I had a
They're just
senior.
about a year-ish apart.
Yeah. I
hmm
had a senior moment. So you did tell us
No,
that. So
no.
so when so are they home? Like, who's home? Who's out? Did anybody go to college, working? Because those are things that are really hard sometimes for our kids to navigate, those things that, other kids who haven't had the same kind of background um, can navigate.
Yeah, I love that you're asking that. So I have 3 that are married and 2 are in college, and all of them have navigated some form of college, either, you know, like a 4-year university or like Bible college or, other ways to get some education as a young adult. And I can tell you there was a very specific season where, because of the places that we lived, including we lived, kind of on the mission field, um, because of those situations, we had to homeschool. And
Mhm.
because of the needs of our kids, just different educational diagnoses, from dyslexia to, dysgraphia to, just the regular run-of-the-mill sort of, adoption interruption sorts of traumatic, backgrounds. And so we ended up, you know, uh, homeschooling. And there was just the season, as they were approaching junior high and high school, that I would just sit on the couch and just beg God, like, I cannot envision college. I cannot envision
Mhm.
paying for college, like, because most of our kids were not qualifying at the time for, academic scholarships or, athletic scholarships or
Mhm.
anything. And so I was like, Lord, I can't even see that future. Like, I cannot envision what it's
Mhm.
going to look like for my kids as a young adult. And what do I need to do with them in 6th grade, to help them prepare, and just all of these things. And man, the Lord has been faithful,
Mhm.
so faithful and so good to us. All, like I said, all of them have navigated some form of education or are still navigating. And I can only say that was the Lord, both in getting it
Yeah.
paid for, getting entrance into
Mhm.
college, sticking with it.
Mhm.
And we do have one who's been impacted by FASD, and this kiddo is just rocking it. And
Mm,
I'm like, by the grace of God,
mm,
I honestly don't know how people experience this life, much less raise kids through adoption and foster care without the Lord. I really don't. I
yeah,
can't imagine
can't
having to
imagine it.
navigate, without him,
Yeah,
um, in my marriage, in my parenting, and in my natural sense of like fear and anxiety for their future.
yeah,
And so what's great is that we can absolutely look back and say, wow, I couldn't picture it. I had no
yeah,
idea. As their
yeah,
one of their teachers, homeschooling them, I
yeah.
knew all of their educational weaknesses. They know all of my weaknesses.
Mhm. Yeah,
And like I can't express how grateful I am in the ways that they've navigated some of that stuff.
yeah, that is wonderful because we've done the homeschooling thing too. We homeschooled before adoption. We homeschooled when kids came home. Our youngest two went into public school for a little while, just because their needs were significant, and I was feeling like um, I'm not, uh, I'm just not able to meet their needs, which that kind of sort of did work well until COVID, and then so
Right.
our youngest, who's now 19, we're calling this his senior year, and he goes into school for a couple hours a few days a week to do some life skills and social skills, and then he has a part-time job with lots of
Mm,
support that we're helping him to be able to get to and have, and I do a tiny bit of homeschooling still at home, and but this is considered his senior year. But it's sometimes looking at the future and seeing where our kids are at now with with the trauma that they come to us with, and with any kind of brain-based difference, whether it's from prenatal exposure to alcohol or whatever it may be, um, and just kind of what's the future going to look like? Are they going to be able to live independently? Are they going to be able to
right.
have a job? Are they going to be able to get married one day? Like,
Right.
it's a concern. So, as you guys have navigated that, are you seeing kids like, I know you have a couple that are married, you said, um,
Yes, three of ours are married.
three are married, and
Hmm.
then I know, so out of our five adopted kids, two are married, two are home, and one, she's successfully living independently and doing great. But everybody's kind of been all over the place when it's come to education. Some did college, some did trade, and some just couldn't even navigate that kind of thing, and just kind of,
Sure.
you know, trying to have jobs with support to just
Right.
be able to do things. So that's always a journey because every kid is different, every situation is different. So, and do you have grandkids? Do you have
No,
grandkids? Not yet. Ooh. So
no.
we've got eight grandkids.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so one of our biological sons has, him and his wife have five of them, but our two of our adopted kids, our daughter who came to us through kinship, she has one, her and her husband have one little boy, and then our one of our the oldest of the Ukrainian crew that came, he's married, and they have two little girls and one on the way. So we're super excited about that because he's just done phenomenally, and because he came to us at 9, I didn't have baby pictures or didn't
Right.
really know what he looked like when he was, little or a baby, but his little girls look exactly like him. So it's kind of like getting, God is faithful. Like I get to
Mm.
kind of experience, I bet that he looked like that when he was little,
Oh, that's precious.
seeing him as a dad, he's phenomenal. So lots of healing. You've seen, because you guys have done the therapy,
Yes.
that's been a big part about it. So how else, or how have you navigated with your family, with your kids, that healing journey?
Oh my goodness. How much time do we have?
Long as you need.
Oh my goodness. I know that, I've talked some about, the importance of, God's sovereignty and his
Mhm.
role and the healing of Jesus in our family. I I talked some about content, understanding some of, like the actual science of what is
Mhm.
going on here,
Yeah.
which takes some of the shame and blame and that kind of thing out of it. I would also, and then of course, professional help,
Mhm.
therapy and whatnot. Um, I would definitely, absolutely pause here and just say the importance of community. I cannot fathom navigating this without community. And that can look like a lot of different things.
Yeah.
When the kids were younger, we would go to homeschool conferences and we would see all kinds of families that were colorful and a little crazy, just like ours, and we could bring the kids. And so, of course, that made it more navigable. And I would say, what I didn't know is that there are, these adoption foster care conferences like Replanted and the Reconference that's this weekend. If I had known that, I'd have been there in a heartbeat. But, just didn't have access to that for whatever reason. But that's a great place to get community. I know some larger churches have, great community in terms of specific to adoptive and foster care, families. Some have community around kids with unique and special challenges. Some have, just the general church community. It's not specific to a specific need. And then for some people, it's their neighbors, it's their, the people that go to the moms group, it's there's just 1,000 ways that it could look. It could be family. We have not lived near family for many, many years, but for some people it's family. And, those grandparents, those aunt and uncles, those, siblings, siblings of the parents. And just, for some people it is the, biological family of the kiddos. And so it really is, so important to consider community, but not just like anybody, right? It needs to feel like safe space. And I don't mean that we need to just unload our deepest, darkest challenge for everyone in that community at all times. But what I do mean is that it needs to be the kind of space where I feel accepted, where I feel known, where I can say, we're having a really bad day. And somebody can look at me in the face and say, I don't need the details, but if you want to share, I'm here,
Yeah.
Or if I could say, something's really going on with one of my kids, and they can, I can tell them what's going on, and they're not looking at me like, well, have you just, maybe it's tough love. Maybe you just need that, Meredith, or
just discipline. Yeah.
Or you just need to be harder on them, or you need to be softer on them, or you need, Meredith, what have you done to contribute to this situation? And, I am here to say I am far from having it together. I, have never been the perfect parent and will never.
Yeah.
But man, we're all doing the best we can, right?
Yeah.
And so I just, I want to emphasize the importance of, community. And really that is really all of those things are part of what led us to start James Trail, because we wanted to provide a resource, much like you're doing. You're doing some amazing work, just, wanting to remind the community of, like, if we are, for people that are people of faith, the healing of Jesus, and in general, the importance of content, and in general, the importance of community, and just helping families who've experienced not just adoptive and foster families, but all families, individuals, organizations, churches, organizations that have been impacted by trauma, that, we are all on this journey. And the more we can journey together, the closer we can get towards, healing.
Sandra Flach, host of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, and FASD educator Debbie Raymond, invite you to join Hope for the FASD Journey, a virtual support community for parents and caregivers raising individuals with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, diagnosed or not. This faith-based support community meets online 3 times each month, features special VIP guests, and a private Facebook group for members only, which includes Soul Care Saturday video devotionals led by Sandra and Deb. Both Sandra and Deb are adoptive moms raising kids with FASD and facilitators of the Facets Neurobehavioral Model. For details and to register, visit justicefororphansny.org/hope-community. That's justicefororphansny.org/hope-community.
So I love the fact that you mentioned community. That's one of the things that we also provide through our Hope for the FASD Journey
I love that.
support group that we have for
Yes.
parents and caregivers, because that's what I found. Nobody gets it, this parenting journey, if they aren't also parenting kids who've experienced trauma, kids who, because it's just different. And those traditional parenting, methods and advice don't work with our kids.
Right.
And then if there's been prenatal exposure, you're almost like next level of that. So having community that gets it, who can just help you, come
Absolutely.
alongside and hold up our weary arms. That's so, so important. And then you mentioned James Trail. So I really want to dig into this a little bit because I love what you're doing. You founded James Trail. So tell us a little bit more about the work that you do on behalf of families.
Yeah, so our work did begin initially in the adoptive and foster family zone and in that community. But over the last year or two, we've really felt the Lord leading us into really anyone, areas where individuals, families, churches, organizations, businesses, hospitals are impacted by trauma. What we're really feeling called into right now, and specifically for 2025, are communities where the gap between resources and the need is so great that they really, are asking us to step in. And most of those kinds of situations are global settings, they're outside of the United States. And so we've really been so honored to be able to join in some of these global communities. And, from a culturally sensitive, we do our best to, come at this, with a culturally sensitive mindset. And that we're not coming to give you, like, if you do these 8 things, then you're good.
Right.
Basically, that looks different in every context, right?
Right.
And so and again, it's not just the content, but it's, if we're people of faith, it's our faith and strengthening that. It's also community. So it's really all of it coming together. And so that's kind of, what we kind of try to do. So what that looks like fleshed out is we do in-person workshops for any of these communities, and we do a lot of work in the United States as well. And so those in-person workshops, and then also we provide free online resources, and this is in the form of podcasts, as you know, and then blogs and newsletters, and we're on social media. And all of that is meant to foster, basically all the things that we've just been talking about. And so, and all of that's, free. And so, yeah, that's a lot of what we have the privilege of doing.
Yeah. So outside of the United States, what countries or continents are you working? Where are you working?
Yeah, so we were in Cuba in January,
Wow.
and it was absolutely phenomenal. We're working with an organization called Proclaim Cuba, and they work with an organization in Cuba that supports and leads over 70 churches across the island and 140 something house churches. So what's exciting is you can definitely see the gospel taking hold and taking root and changing people's lives for the better in such positive ways. And when we get to step in and be a part of that, like, absolutely, healing from trauma is something that we all need. And so it's just really been a privilege. We, partner with Shoulder to Shoulder Ministries, which is in Mazatlan, Mexico. They're wonderful, wonderful, folks, and they have after school programs, that they support, that their goal is to support local churches as well. And so they support churches as they do these community after school programs. And of course, the kids coming into these programs
Yeah.
need extra support. And so it's kind of learning to navigate some of that. And so we've been able to join hands with them for that. We have invitations this year to go back to Jordan. We did some work in a church in Jordan in, April of last year, 3-day workshop, which was just so, oh my goodness, so powerful for me to get to
Mm.
be in that space where there's so many refugees and so much need.
Mm.
So we have invitation to come back to Jordan this year, plus to go and work with churches and organizations in India. And then
Mm.
there's a church in Zambia that's associated with the Vineyard that has invited us to come.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible, incredible work. Are you doing, what about in the United States? Do you do any in-person things here? I know you're going to be at the RE-conference this weekend. What else do you do? And do you offer online? Because I know you do TBRI and, or you're, a TBRI practitioner and trauma informed therapist and all of that. So what are you doing here in the United States?
So we are our home is outside of Colorado Springs. And so we do a few things here in the area, both, in the rural areas that go towards the mountains and the more city areas that go away from the mountains. And so that's been really fun, workshops in churches and in organizations and with foster care, agencies and mental health, all agencies, like all the things here locally. And then we are involved on some level in probably 3 or 4 conferences, maybe 5 a year. And so that's really fun. Love a good conference.
Yeah.
And then we've also done work in hospitals and hospital settings. So at one time we were going and doing these workshops in a hospital network in Northern California. And so I would go and I would train in these 5 different rural hospitals all in one trip. And it was a
Wow.
monthly thing. And so, man, the trauma that
Mm.
impacts, medical folks and healthcare professionals
Mm.
is so real. And so
Yeah.
anyway, that was a real pleasure to get to, partner with them. So there's just, I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but there's a lot of different ways that we love stepping in and being a part of what God is already doing somewhere. And we love to train in churches and that kind of thing. And then a new thing that's happening for us this year is called JT Med, or James Trail Med. My husband is a family care physician, and so he's been involved in global medical care for 30 years. And so what's really fun is we feel God calling us to work together on something like this. And so he is leading a, network into global medical care, but not just one-time trips and not just regular medical care globally. This is trauma-informed medical
Mm.
care globally.
Wow.
What does that need to look like in
Mm.
Zambia? What does that need to look like in Cuba? How can we create environments where folks can come in and get the medical care they need, but their trauma and the challenges they face is
Mm.
also considered in the equation. And so we were able to experience some of that for the first time in Cuba in January, and it was just so rich
Mm.
to be able to do that. So yeah.
Yeah. Incredible work, Meredith. Where can our listeners learn more? I'm sure you guys have a website.
We do. jamestrail.org is our
Mm.
website, and our social media is, at James Trail Global, and, happy to share any of those links with you.
Yeah.
And yeah, just love it. Love for people to interact, love for people to join in, love to know, like, what are the topic areas that people are interested in? What do people want to hear about? And how can we come alongside folks in the journey?
Yeah. Because you host a podcast as well. Give us the name of your podcast.
Yes, it's James Trail from Functional to Flourishing.
Mm.
And we've had a very lovely guest named Sandra come join us. And so we're excited for that episode to drop. But yeah, it's just such a fun way, and I know you know this,
Yeah.
to meet people and to connect and to work together with people.
Yeah. And I just saw you've got Barb Clark on an episode, so I will be tuning into that. I love Barb. I've had her on this show as well. She is phenomenal.
She is.
And she'll be at
That's right.
Reconference, right? Also.
She's a general session speaker at RE,
Yeah.
so we'll get to see
Yeah.
her again this weekend. So yeah.
Yeah. She's incredible. And I didn't really know about the reconference. Like I hadn't heard about it before. And
Oh yeah.
I think it was the Norths, Ryan and Kayla. They're like, oh yeah, you're gonna go to that, right? And I'm like, haven't even heard of that one. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I probably should go. I probably should see if if there's something, a workshop or a breakout session. But when I went and checked it out and I saw Barb Clark was speaking, I'm like, oh, they're all good because she's incredible. So maybe next year I'll get there, but
Absolutely.
that's going to be a fabulous conference for sure. And we will put links in the show notes to jamestrail.org and to your
Awesome. Thank
social
you.
media so folks can find you. But I wanted to ask you about the scripture verse because I opened with Colossians 1:17. Let me read it again. For by him all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. What does that verse mean to you, Meredith?
Well, the version that I have memorized says he goes before all things, and in him
Mm,
all things hold together.
yeah,
And I just need an amen. I just need to be held.
yeah,
Don't we all need to be held together at some
yes,
point? Like, would someone please hold me
yeah.
together? And I have needed that. I have leaned on that verse, and that, like,
Mm,
I'm swimming there are definitely seasons and times when I'm just swimming. My head is swimming. My heart is swimming, just exhausted, frustrated,
mm,
angry, grieving, sad, whatever. And just to know that he is going before me. I'm not alone in this. I'm not only not alone, but he's ahead of me. So he goes
yeah,
before me and he's holding me together. He's holding our
mm,
family together. He's
yeah,
holding our finances together. He's holding our relationships together. Even when sometimes it looks like things are falling apart, I know that I can lean into the fact that he goes
mm,
before, and on some level, maybe even a level I can't perceive, he is holding us together. And man, that is just that's what I need
mm.
to hear every day.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And you know that our listeners are primarily adopted parents, foster parents, kinship caregivers. So, and you sort of just preached it right there, but I'm sure that there's something else you could add to it. But we always love to end with a word of encouragement, some
Mm,
advice, something for our parents. So, would you just close us out with some words of encouragement?
absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's hard to summarize. But for people of faith, finding that mantra, which for many of us is a verse, finding that that person or those communities, finding faith in a
Mm,
new way
mm,
can be like Romans 8 kind of good. It can be
yeah,
good.
yeah.
It can be good. I may not be able to see it right now.
Mm,
And I honestly I have to be okay with that. I have come to the place in some areas, not in all, but in some areas of my life where I can say, I don't need to know the outcome here, Lord. I
mm,
don't need to have the answer. If I know that you go before me, and if I know that you're holding me together,
mm,
that's going to be enough for me. And again, I'm not there with all the areas of my life, but I really believe that the more that I can lean in on some of that and really know that there are people out there that understand messy
yeah,
and that are not judging me for it, even in the
mm,
faith community. There
yeah.
are some of us in the faith community that stand in judgment over each other, but there are a lot of us that are not. And
Mm,
finding those people that are safe and that will listen and not talk or talk when is needed.
Mhm.
That is absolutely huge. So I'm just so thankful to have the opportunity to share today,
Mm.
and so thankful for the work that you do and for the ways that you do draw in, that opportunity for community for so many people.
Thank you so much, Meredith. Thank you for all that you are doing. Incredible work through James Trail and through the conferences. Have a great time this weekend at Reconference.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'll see you somewhere along the line at a conference, but thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it at James Trail. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you. And thank you for listening to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey today. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Meredith Shuman. Be sure to scroll down to the show notes, right, and check out the links so you can check out the website for James Trail and their wonderful social media. You'll want to check that out as well. So in addition to providing great content like we do on this podcast to encourage you, we also want to equip you for your parenting journey. You heard about the support group, Hope for the FASD Journey, the support community we offer. I also offer our FASD parent coaching. So if you're raising children who were prenatally exposed to alcohol or other drugs, you may or may not even realize that your kiddo may have an FASD. Maybe they're diagnosed, maybe they're not. Maybe you don't even know if they should be. You can reach out. Would love to chat with you. I offer online and in-person workshops about FASD. Every month, I offer a free 1 hour. It ends up going a little bit longer than that if there's Q&A at the end, but it's a 1 hour intro to FASD workshop that you can check out. And of course, the parent coaching and the support group. You can find information and registration for all of that on our website at justicefororphansny.org. So make sure you go there. There's some great content, great workshops that are scheduled. I am offering the 6-week workshop, which is 6 3-hour sessions once a week for 3 hours. I believe it's going to begin at the beginning of May, and it'll go 6 weeks. And we take a deep dive into the facets neurobehavioral model. And so whether you're raising a kiddo who was prenatally exposed to alcohol or other drugs, or maybe it's just the trauma piece, or just trauma, like nothing is just trauma, right? But, or any brain-based difference, any invisible disability, autism, whatever it might be, the neurobehavioral model can equip you with some strategies and some education and some help to help you support your children or your child. And it's really beginning to shift our paradigm to understand that when the brain works differently, there's a different way to parent and to care for that child, and how to support them and accommodate them so that they can be successful, because their brain works differently. For whatever reason that may be. For my 2 boys, it's because they were prenatally exposed to alcohol and also have trauma. So we want to equip you for that. It's a unique parenting journey. Not everybody gets it. So check out all of our resources at justicefororphansny.org. I also have my own website, sandraflach.com, where I blog. You can check out my blog and other things that are going on there. And of course, we are on social media. This podcast, if you want to watch it, we do have a YouTube channel, the Justice for Orphans YouTube channel, where all of the video versions of the podcast are. You can go there and watch that. We've got some other videos that we produced. And of course, we are on Justice for Orphans is on both Instagram and Facebook. And you can also find me, Sandra Flach, in both of those places as well. So I hope that you will find us and follow us. Greatly appreciate that. And also grateful that you spent your valuable time with us today. I'm grateful and thrilled to have you along for the journey.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, brought to you by Justice for Orphans. We hope you were encouraged today. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review, and share it with your fellow foster and adoptive parent friends so they can be encouraged too. Be sure to find and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Justice for Orphans. And check out our website for vital resources at justicefororphansny.org.